Hi, I'm Amber, and welcome to the Revero Success Story Podcast. Today we have Rob with us, and he will be sharing his story. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you, Amber. Nice to meet you.
Absolutely. Okay, so Rob, let's get started. The first question I'd like to know is what was your life like, your health prior to starting a meat-based diet? Were you having any issues, any concerns?
Yeah, it was pretty awful. About a year ago, I was probably close to 400 pounds, if I had to guess. Um, I started really tracking it at 380 pounds, but um, I was obviously morbidly obese. In 2019, the only month that I wasn't sick was September. That's the normality was being ill. Um, I suspect I had early COVID. I had pneumonia in each lung, could barely breathe. The full extent of my activity typically looked like I could take a shower and then collapse back into the chair.
Mm.
That was about as much as I could do. Um, I couldn't really sit in most furniture, let alone a booth at a restaurant or anything like that. It was getting pretty horrible. It's really not a fun quality of life. It's kind of embarrassing. And yeah, I couldn't really sleep very well horizontally. Still can't, but that's gotten a lot better. Um, I couldn't really play with my kids. It was really awful. I was just eating like just your standard American diet stuff, processed food, your mac and cheese and spam, drinking probably a little too much. And just the standard junk food that fast food, all that stuff, all the bad seed oils and all that stuff, carbs, pasta, you name it. And I worked for a Fortune 100 company in information risk. It was a somewhat stressful job. It dealt with people leaving the company. So it was felt like a Grim Reaper kind of job. Um, and but things really took a turn around early 2020, and my health just plummeted, and it was to the point where my wife and I were pretty sure I was on my way out. So that was where I started.
That's a very scary feeling, but I understand that completely. I can relate to that. So, Rob, when you first started a meat-based diet, how did you implement it? In other words, what were you eating? What did you not eat? And did you have any transitional issues?
Yes. Well, I'd have to go back in time a little bit first because I started a carnivore diet 4 years ago. First, first whack at it, and it didn't go well. It went great, really great, for about a month to 3 months, roughly. But the side effects, there was no real community like there is now for people that have experienced any of this stuff. Keto wasn't a word that I'd even heard back then. It was Atkins was the closest thing, and I was just flying blind, really. And there was like some Facebook group that I had joined to get information on it, and so I tried it. I lost like 30 or 40 pounds in like a month, and it felt great, but I was not prepared for the storm of symptoms that come along with suddenly shifting into what is actually a healthy diet, and all the detox symptoms, the what I learned later to be oxalate dumping symptoms, the gout type symptoms. These I had joint pain like you wouldn't believe. I started up CrossFit because I started to feel great, and then next thing I know, I can't stand up straight because my heel feels like it's just, I don't even know how to describe that pain. It's gout. I don't, unless you've ever had it, it's hard to describe it. But you put any pressure on it, and it's just agony. Where's this coming from? I didn't injure it. I tried sleeping with this wacky old man brace thing on my ankle. My wife did not appreciate that. It was like this big plastic thing, and it didn't even really work that well. I was just desperate for any kind of like therapeutic thing that I could solve for it. But at the end of the day, the symptoms were incapacitating in some cases. And my joints were just in agony, even though they felt great for the first month. Um, and I just slowly stopped doing the CrossFit, feeling like, oh, I guess I just suck. I guess I just can't do this then. And that sort of, it's kind of like getting a little taste of victory. So you start to feel good, and then reality just comes in and knocks you down, and it's pretty devastating. And I think a lot of people go through diet attempts like this because, how many times do you try, you fail, you try, you fail, you try, you fail, and you just keep getting the same advice like, well, you just have to have more mental discipline. Just have more, not acquire more through steps A, B, and C. It's just have more mental discipline, or all that stuff. So you start to get down on yourself. It's psychologically damaging, and because you feel like you keep trying and you just keep hitting the wall, and so you just figure, well, I guess I just suck. Well, yeah, and that failed, and I just sort of gave up at that point and just was eating whatever and figured, well, I guess I'm just going to be fat until I die, and that probably is only a few years off, and it was looking that way. So this last year, got super sick. I actually started smoking again for a little bit there, and then I got pneumonia in each lung, couldn't breathe. And fun fact, if you've ever been a smoker, getting pneumonia in each lung for a few months where you can't really breathe too great is an excellent way to quit smoking. It's a very, very strong motivator. So yay, I quit smoking after I probably had COVID. And then yeah, I couldn't really breathe, couldn't really do anything at this point. I was on disability from work and ended up just not being able to go back after several failed attempts. Almost passed out walking down the stairs out of the office one day. It was kind of awful. And then the lockdown happened, and it basically I turned into full-time dad. So there wasn't a whole lot I could do. However, it was still pretty limited physically. But sort of meandering a little bit here, but basically I ended up slowly getting better during the lockdown. And I went from being able to not do anything at all to I could mow the lawn if I took it in 3 sections, one section one day, another section the next day, because every time I do anything physical, I'd be just drenched in sweat, completely exhausted. I was done for the day and would just collapse into my chair. And around July, it was late July, July 27th, my wife had started intermittent fasting. And she'd been doing that for about 2 weeks. And she started losing weight. And she's like, this is really easy. This is kind of crazy. This is really effective. You gotta try. And she used to do CrossFit back in the day. She was big into like the paleo stuff. And I liked the philosophy of that stuff, that whole mindset that like safe bet, eat like a caveman, try to emulate how we would have lived as much as you can, 10,000, 20,000 years ago. And that's probably a pretty safe bet. But sticking to that was very difficult. It was just, it's almost unrealistic. And then, so she started the intermittent fasting. That got me started on it. So I started with that, and then I quickly discovered like the keto approach, which is very similar to paleo. And then, and almost like this all within like 3 weeks, pretty much, started combining intermittent fasting with a keto carnivore approach, and started having results that just blew me away. It was like the same thing that I had experienced 4 years ago, but it just worked. This time, the symptoms, I was beginning to understand what they were, and that helped a lot. Because if you just all of a sudden you just start feeling awful, all your joints hurt. I just assumed that was because I was trying to do CrossFit and I wasn't really physically up for that. And then you realize that no, it's you've got inflammation, you've got oxalate dumping, you've got all of these other detox symptoms that are occurring. And I had no concept of any of this stuff when I first tried this, so it was sort of doomed to fail. And then ultimately it became a big help for me was Dr. Rob Siwas, the Copper Addiction Doc on YouTube. His videos were spot on. And taking the addiction model approach towards carbs and sugars was the big epiphany for me. It really that was what kind of that was the weapon I had to have in my arsenal. It was like fighting it the whole time up until that point. It was like fighting an enemy that you thought was. It's like you're fighting, you know, you're trying to fight Cuba in the Russian Missile Crisis, and you're ignoring the fact that no, it's actually Russia, or something like that. You're fighting the wrong enemy. It's not just your lack of willpower. You're dealing with an addiction. And until I took that approach, and you feel like a zealot when you do. You feel like you're just some wackadoodle that just heard some crazy thing online. You're just getting into some weird cult thing now, and you know what is this addiction to bread? Come on, it's thousands of years of tradition. No, it's kind of part of civilization, and civilization itself is sort of unnatural, and you have to kind of start to take a big step back, take a deep breath, and analyze it. And as a former smoker, I realized that this is exactly the same symptoms that I have when I try to quit smoking, when I try to quit carbs. Hangry, agitated. I'd be pacing. I was super irritable. My wife, she was wonderful for tolerating me during these periods, but I could run the same experiment over and over and over again and get the same result. Like, this is exactly the same symptoms as withdrawal. Keto flu, I call that withdrawal for me. So it was I had a failed start, and then just a year ago, it all sort of clicked. The paleo philosophy, the intermittent fasting from Dr. Jason Fung, Dr. Rob Siwas, and then finally I landed on it was then called MeatRx. Now it's Revero, with Dr. ShawnBaker. And of course, you got to love his videos. I mean, it's just great. There was one, well, I don't want to go in. Nobody can deliver that like he can. He's got a great style for communication on that. But it just, all of these things had to combine at the same time for the idea to really sink in. And so I started fasting, and I started a less strict approach to carnivore. I started with a sort of a ketovore approach, leveraging that a bit, and that mitigated a lot of the symptoms that I'd experienced before. I still had them. I had rashing during early implementation all over my upper torso. I had a gout flare-up. I actually had my arm in a sling one day, for a couple of days, because it was so painful. Even resting it while my heart was beating was just agony. My whole right arm was just, it was not just not movable, it was just throbbing, constant pain. And ironically, my wife was doing similar thing at the time, and she actually had a hip joint flare-up issue right around the same time. We both had these weird joint issues because we were kind of doing a similar fasting and dieting approach. She would introduce a little more carbs than I would, but we were kind of going through the same journey. She's lost like 50 pounds from this. And so, yeah, I was able to leverage some keto vegetables in there at first, before finally transitioning over to full keto. But I finally solved the inflammation, the constipation issues that come along with the initial transition, the mental discipline that came from just about 3 months of being. It was sort of 3 months of white knuckling in some cases. And I still have my days where I'm white knuckling it, but it was like 90 days of that addiction break. uh, and that was really critical to breaking away from it. But I was able to. I had skin tags disappear. I had my vision actually improved. My prescription for my eyes, I'm wearing contacts now, but actually dropped down a notch. All my clothes, I was constantly having to buy new clothes because it just kept like dropping. I've lost 10 inches off my waist. My weight keeps fluctuating, but my waistline doesn't change, and that's because I've been hitting the gym. Which that was a whole. I'll get to that later, but it's. I started, yeah. So I started with the sort of just intermittent fasting, no diet change. Within a week, I was doing ketogenic. Within 2 to 3 weeks, I was mostly carnivore with some ketogenic vegetables mixed in. And I kind of periodically would leverage that over the next 3 months. And then by the end of that, right now I'm mostly carnivore with some cheating over summer vacation stuff, as because I am a human and I do cheat. And that's kind of that's how this sort of started. Long-winded, but.
Could you just go really quick over a typical day of what you eat?
Sure. So I actually grill every day. I normally don't eat anything during the day. I skip breakfast and lunch. I just do coffee, iced coffee black, and water and maybe some salt. And then I'll just eat a ribeye and about 16 to 18 ounces of ribeye, and then a couple of Denver steaks if I've been lifting. And I don't know if Denver steaks are just awesome. In case anyone hasn't heard of them, not every butcher knows how to make them, but they're like half the price of a ribeye, and they're awesome. And that's pretty much it. I'll have some eggs sometimes, and I'll have like cheese and smoked pepperoni for like the odd snack or indulgence, but mostly it's just like ribeye and some Denver steaks and black coffee. I sometimes do add cream. I try to come back on the dairy. Been getting kind of sloppy with it over the summer. It just tastes so good, but yeah, I do better when I cut out the dairy.
Awesome. And I agree with you. Ooh, heavy cream is the bomb. And that's my issue too. So I get it. Okay. So Rob, you've talked a little bit about some of the improvements, but let's go over that again and talk about how things that you mentioned in the first question have changed. And was there anything that kind of surprised you?
Yeah, so a lot of issues were solved. I was able to, with the weight loss, I was able to, pretty much every aspect of life changed. But, I can do stairs, no problem. I can play with my kids like a dad should be able to play with his kids. Just pick them up, swing them around and all that good stuff. And I can sleep horizontally for like half the night. Not quite through the whole night yet, but getting there. And I've actually one thing it improved my mood more than I expected. I think when you're in that place where you can't really do anything, you're effectively useless for anybody around you. It's I don't want to get all emo and emotional and all that stuff, but depression would be the appropriate word for it. You kind of do the math and why are you here? So to shift from being almost completely incapacitated to being a functional human and father again and husband, it's pretty profound and gives you a new lease on life. And it's absolutely life changing. But specifically, after the weight loss started to happen, I started to go from pretty much being depressed. My circle of social life was shrinking. I was deliberately like not going to family things. I didn't want to go hang out with anybody. Why? I couldn't do anything. It was really kind of embarrassing. It was just, you feel like everyone's looking at you like, poor guy's gonna die. Like, it's not a pleasant way to be. And so within like 3 months, I started to like come out of my shell again because I was happy. I was feeling great. I could do things. I wanted to do things because they didn't hurt as much. Um, and then I started physical therapy in late November last year. And then that within a month, I left that and transitioned to a functional fitness gym because I was able to go get through workouts. This was what really surprised me. I was able to get through workouts without being pretty much knocked flat afterwards. I was able to recover like I haven't recovered ever. The only time I had a serious weightlifting health kick, I was 18 years old. And that only lasted like a month or two. This has been the longest sustained period of time in my life where I've been able to be physically active and exercise. And it's surprised me because I've become something of an addict of it. I've really, 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 really begun to enjoy lifting weights. And to the point where I bought the darn Arnold book, and I transitioned away from the functional fitness gym, and now I'm kind of doing my own thing. And my arms started to look like arms are supposed to look, and it's like my wife teases me because I can't stop flexing. It just feels so good, and I've become so I'm not a fitness junkie, but I've been way more absorbed in the fitness side of things than I ever imagined I would be. I'm typically a nerd. I've got D&D books behind me here. This is not weightlifting has not been like a part of my life before, but when suddenly you stop hurting everywhere, your joints stop hurting, and you don't feel like you're just like endlessly chasing after a goal that you know you can't reach because the fat will always overcome whatever muscle you're building. It's like this allows me to solve for the fat. I can burn that. I can fast, and I don't advocate this, but I can fast for 9 days. My last one was a 9-day fast, no food, just water, salt, and black iced coffee. I haven't eaten since Tuesday, and I feel fantastic. I get more done in a fasted state than I do in a fed state. It's completely counter to everything. That's been shocking. I have accomplished more home projects in a fasted state when I haven't eaten for like at least 24 hours than like any other period in my life. I can think better. I handle my kids better. I have a lot more patience for them, except for the evenings. I'll admit that. When the hunger spike happens, I'm still kind of cranky sometimes, but I wait for that wave to go away, and then I'm back to normal. But it's been, I can go kayaking. I can marriage is better. Pretty much every aspect of life, every single metric has improved. Like the skin tags just disappearing, like they didn't even exist. Not to get gross, but that's a thing, and that just went away. It's been really astounding, and it's so shocking that I get tired of waiting for another year. It's like I'm not the only guy that's been just feeling ill and weak and fat for a large portion of his life. And any dads out there, families need us. And this is too easy and simple, and it feels so normal once you start doing it, that it shouldn't be that hard to burn the fat. It shouldn't be that hard to just be a normal, healthy, functional human being. We shouldn't be like approaching death at age 40. It shouldn't be this hard. And it's only when you realize that everything that you're told that's the standard advice is completely wrong, completely backwards wrong. It just starts to make a lot more sense. It's a lot more intuitive, and it's a lot easier than I thought. And it saved my life.
I love your story, Rob. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I think it's amazing. And I'm so, so happy that you found a way to get your life back. So important.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Bye.
Join Revero.health for a 30-day free trial to get access to live Q&A with VIP guests, social community meetings, member discounts, low-carb healthcare providers list, forum, workouts, monthly challenges, early access to podcasts, recipes, carnivore diet guide, fasting guide, shred guide, and much more.